Everyone. Thank
Dun,
you.
dun.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our info session on fundraising management for the spring-summer 2026 term. My name is Mushra Chaudhry, and I'm the manager of recruitment and sales for the Shank School. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which Toronto Metropolitan University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. I thank the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island for their efforts to protect the land, and I deeply regret the past injustices they have endured. As Toronto Metropolitan University, that is more inclusive and welcoming for Indigenous peoples from all communities. Now, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb the other attendees or our panelists. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating it in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And you can submit your questions for our panelists at any time by typing them into the question box of the control panel. We'll collect them throughout the session and address them during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. Joining us, we have Krishan Mehta, an advancement leader in higher education, who's the Vice President of University Advancement and Alumni Relations, and also academic coordinator and instructor for the certificate. And then we have Michelle Hounslow, a certified fundraising executive and executive director at University Advancement and Alumni of the course. We're excited to have them with us and looking forward to their insights. And before we start the presentation, we wanted to do a quick poll with everyone. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen so you can take part in this poll. So we're using a new tool this time. It's Mentimeter. It's a pretty cool tool and it's really simple. If you can all just pull out your phones or on your browser, go to menti.com and enter the code that's on the screen, which is 31335377. It's only gonna take a few seconds and it's really helpful for us to provide some feedback to our panelists and to our team that works with this certificate. So yeah, once again, it's menti.com and the code is 31335377. And the question that you will see first is what motivated you to consider this certificate? And you will see a few options there: career advancement, career change, skill building for current role, personal interest, and other. And looks like we've got a few entries coming in already. We've got 2 votes for career advancement, 3 for career change, 1 for skill building for current role, and 1 for personal interest, which is always nice to see. So we'll move on to our next poll. So same thing, menti.com, 31335377. And this time we want to know what is your current level of knowledge in this field. It doesn't have to be of this certificate specifically, but of fundraising in general. And the options are high, I'm well informed about the field; moderate, I have basic awareness; and low, I have minimal or no prior knowledge, which is totally fine as well. And looks like moderate basic awareness is got 5 votes and 1 for high and 1 for low. And 1 more for moderate, so that's great. We'll leave that on for just a couple of more seconds, and then we will end this poll, and I'll throw it back to Randall to share the presentation. All right. Well, thank you again for participating in this poll, and I will now invite Krishan Mehta to provide a brief overview of the certificate. Like I mentioned, Krishant is an advancement leader in higher education, Vice President of University Advancement and Alumni Relations, and an academic coordinator and instructor for the certificate. He's also an adjunct faculty in the graduate program of philanthropy and nonprofit leadership at Carleton University. So, as you can tell, an expert in the field. So, thank you, Krishan, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to be here with all of you today. And thank you for taking the time to learn more about this incredible certificate. I'm a little biased, I have to say. I have been in the field of philanthropy and fundraising for just over 24 or 25 years. And the field is changing tremendously. And so this certificate, which was just recently redesigned, really responds to the best practices that we see in the field of fundraising and nonprofit charity leadership, but also looks at emerging trends and issues that will inform the future of fundraising. And so this program was redesigned recently, as I mentioned, to serve people who have a lot of things on the go. So most of our students have either full-time or part-time jobs, family responsibilities, or other things happening in their lives, but are still very committed to their professional career development, career growth. And as we saw in the Menti poll there, really about serving a kind of deep passion for the charitable sector and connecting that to a profession or field in fundraising. This course, therefore, was developed with an eye on you in mind, in a completely asynchronous program that's available online, which means that you can do it from the comfort of your home or your workplace or elsewhere. And we have developed 5 courses, which I'll tell you more about in a second. Most of the students complete the program within a year or a year and a half, depending on how much they can take on within the course of a semester. And we've decided to keep this course really accessible in terms of cost. The cost is around 3,600 to 4,400. And that really speaks to the ways in which we are thinking about the rising cost fees across higher education, and how do we keep this program accessible to everyone who wants to pursue it. We also have, and I'll mention this in more detail later, a number of financial aid opportunities, scholarships, and bursary programs that are funded by donors through fundraising, which I'll share more about to help keep the costs low for you as well. Next slide, please. So, the Mentimeter indicates that there are a few of you who really represent the majority of our students in the program, people who are either new or early in their fundraising career, people who want to pivot, career change. We have seen a significant growth, I should say, of fundraising professionals and those who are taking this program who have had a career in law, event planning, um, accounting, even some of the kind of caring fields, nursing, social work, where we've seen people bring their professional work and lived experience to this program. And what we found is that people have stumbled into fundraising historically, but now are making a very deliberate choice to pursue this field, which is growing by leaps and bounds. There are 180,000 registered charities in Canada, and so many of them based in the Greater Toronto area or in Ontario, which is where many of our students come from. But that said, this program, because it is online and completely asynchronous, has attracted students from all over the country and even all over the world. So one of the best things about this program is that you get to learn from students who are not necessarily just in your backyard. They are from all over the place, and the program is designed to be able to implement some of those learnings from each other into your own skill set and palette of information that you can use and apply into your jobs. Um, One of the things that is also really interesting is the ways in which this program connects to other programs at the Chang School, specifically the nonprofit management certificate. Fundraising is, of course, this program is connected to the charitable and nonprofit world. And in this course, you'll learn things that will help enhance some of the learnings you may have had or that you may be interested in the nonprofit certificate as well. So I just want to give a shout out to our instructors and leaders in that certificate at the Chang School, which is doing an amazing job in teaching about nonprofit leadership. Next slide, please. So this program, I should say, was designed to address many of the current and issues, best practices, and trends in the fundraising sector. We also teach the brass tacks of fundraising, the how-to, and the operational side. Many students start with the first course, the introductory course, which is called Principles of Fundraising, which teaches really about the ethical underpinnings of fundraising, as well as some of the kind of survey issues that we see in the program or in the sector. We have an entire course dedicated to data analytics, which is an emerging field. How do you use the data you collect, or what kind of data should you collect to make better and informed decisions about your fundraising strategy and practice? We have a course that's actually going to start this spring, along with the Principles of Fundraising course, which looks at all of the various tools of fundraising. Fundraising isn't just event planning and soliciting people at events or through mail or through email or through social media. It is also a number of different strategies that you can apply as it relates to what's called major gifts, working with donors to secure larger donations and gifts and pledges. Annual giving, which is really about mass solicitation of a community, as well as other areas like planned giving, which is people uh, um, leaving charities in their estates and wills, and other forms of giving and investing. Donor advised funds, which is another area that is growing by leaps and bounds, and especially in Canada, we teach a lot about that. And then we look at issues that are a bit thornier. I teach a course right now that is focused on some of the kind of emerging challenges that are facing the sector and some of the greatest opportunities as it relates to, for example, the ways in which diversity and inclusion are informing fundraising practice. And we're looking at things like how lottery and gaming is playing a role in the fundraising world. In addition to that, we look at issues around reconciliation and how does that impact the ways in which we think about charitable giving and who benefits from the generosity of our community. We are also really committed to sharing each other's knowledge. And so what you'll see in this course is a deep connection to the charitable sector leadership. All of our instructors are either fundraising professionals or leading fundraising shops in especially across Ontario. And so you will have an opportunity to learn from them through their experiences and from one another. We also have a course called Operations of Fundraising, which really teaches you the how-to of how to run a fundraising organization. Everything from the exciting tax filings that charities need to do to looking again at smooth operational performance around reporting back to donors, impact, and sharing, of course, the best organizational principles for running a charity. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, this course is completely asynchronous, meaning that it is designed to be delivered at your pace and when you are available. If you're a busy professional or have family responsibilities that keep you away from online learning during the day, you can do it in the evening and vice versa. So this is really a choose your own adventure and timeline type of program that we've developed here. We are also really committed to ensuring that the assignments in the course can help build your portfolio if you're looking for a job or looking to change your career. So you'll have a lot of material at the end of this program to share with a prospective employer to say that, oh, yes, I have developed a fundraising plan. Yes, I know what a fundraising solicitation letter looks like, and here's an example. Here's a paper that I wrote that brings my own professional and personal experience to bear on my fundraising practice and passion. There are a lot of opportunities for you to also be able to share that work with students in the course through the very active discussion boards that is implemented in each course, as well as, of course, informal opportunities to connect. Some of us who teach in the program sometimes have guest speakers where we will offer optional opportunities for people to log on and meet an expert in the field or a fundraiser in the field or a philanthropist or a donor in the field. So that's a fun kind of cherry on top moment that students often experience in this program. Next slide. So as I mentioned, it's 5 courses, and we ask that students come in with a cumulative GPA of 1.67. That's from high school, and we are really excited about the breadth of experiences people are bringing to this program. As I mentioned earlier, students not only bring their personal and professional experiences, but they also bring a deep curiosity about a particular field within the fundraising world or within the charitable sector. As was mentioned earlier, students come with either experience in healthcare or in education or in community services or social justice. And so we really try our best to integrate all of those particular interests through the readings, through the materials that you come across within the content of the course, through the discussion board exercises, and of course the assignments. Next slide. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Chang School and of course this program offers a lot of opportunities as well for you to connect with peers and with fundraising professionals, hiring managers. We actually have grown significantly our LinkedIn page, which you can join to see how people who graduate from the program and even current learners are connecting with one another on various issues and topics and frankly, sharing job opportunities. We have almost 800 people now on that LinkedIn page and group, which is a really great way to receive informal connection and networking, but also really for you to source out new opportunities in the field. We offer, of course, not just that networking opportunity there, but obviously, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the program. And then, of course, there are a ton of resources to help you through your journey at TMU and at the Chang School, and specifically for this program. Of course, an incredible career advising program and career services. We have opportunities to help with your writing and your assignments. And of course, through our academic support accommodations programs. And of course, as I mentioned at the very outset, to help with costs, keeping those costs low, students can apply for a number of scholarships that are available to you as well to help offset some of those tuition fees that are required for this course, of course. So, or this program, I should say. So that I think is the end of my presentation. And so I'll maybe kick it over back to Masroor to introduce Michelle.
Thank you so much for that overview, Krishan, and a very helpful resource, like you said, the LinkedIn page, which I have sent in the chat here. So feel free to join that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Hounslow, Executive Director at University Advancement and also a graduate of the certificate. And Michelle is also a CFRE. Welcome, Michelle. Michelle will speak a little bit about her experience with the certificate and her journey.
Thank you so much, both Christian and Mashur. And I want to welcome everybody here today because it's great to see so many people interested in the certificate. I agree with Christian when he said it's an incredible program because I've been through the program. My journey's interesting. I've been at TMU since 2015 in this role, but my first part of my career, I was in fashion. I'm a TMU alumna as well, from the School of Fashion. So for those of you who are here looking to make a career change or even looking to upgrade your skills or or your career, I think that this program, I personally have had a great experience with it. So, my transition to fundraising was back in 2010, and I entered an entry level role. I hadn't started the program yet. And I entered at an entry level because I really wanted to learn from the ground up. It was completely new to me. So during that first year, I started the program at TMU. It took me 2 years to complete. At the time, there was partial in person and partial online, but I actually think that the online format now gives you even more flexibility than there was before. I did it while I was working full time. So, there's nobody here who knows my journey better than Christian because not only is he my boss now, he hired me while I was a participant of the program. So thank you, Christian. For me, making that career change, I really felt that education equaled opportunity for me, and I've continued with that ongoing learning, receiving my CFRE, getting to grow your knowledge of the sector and best practices. I see that the course it's constantly evolving, so it's very, very current. I do truly believe that it increased my employability as someone kind of transitioning into a new field. And I also think it demonstrates to employers that your commitment to ongoing learning into the field. And now for me as a hiring manager, I do think that the strong knowledge base is evident in candidates who are applying to our jobs, and that's appreciated. And I really do think it helps candidates strengthen their resume as well. Like Christian said, you're going to come out of this with a ton of stuff that you can kind of add to your portfolio and talk to in your interviews. So for me, what I would say is the opportunity to learn from senior nonprofit professionals was unparalleled. It was super helpful for me, something to help me grow my kind of professional network right from the beginning, but also my personal network. I still stay in touch with some of the people who I went to school with, and we help each other and share job opportunities when we think somebody would be interested in that. So. That's kind of my experience, and I encourage you all to give it a try. Back to you, Mishra.
Love
Can I
that. Thank
just,
you so
before you
much.
go in, I just wanted to say that hiring Michelle was one of the best things we did at TMU in fundraising because Michelle has just a really incredible way of applying her skills and experiences, not just in the certificate, but through her career in fundraising to the very complex work that we're doing in advancement. And to have her as an advocate for this program is really very special. So, Michelle, thank you very, very much for sharing your experience with this group.
That's so nice. Thank you very much.
It's really inspiring, the story. Thank you so much for sharing that, not just your individual journeys, but for showing how powerful the whole fundraising community can be and is. The fact that you connected through this certificate and are now working together, it's a testament to the strength of the Chang School community and the support system that we're proud to offer every step of the way. So thank you to our speakers. That concludes the presentation portion of today's session. We'll now open the floor for Q&A. So please go ahead and submit your questions by typing them into the question box in your control panel. Okay, so first question is, in your experience, what specific fundraising roles are graduates landing immediately after completion?
Yeah, great question. I've spoken to a lot of employers who are sourcing new talent from the fundraising management certificate. And one of the things that I've heard time and again is that our alumni, or the students from this program who graduated, are frankly ready. They come in with not just the brass tacks and the basic principles and tools of understanding how a fundraising operation or organization works, but actually are ready to kind of go into the deep end with fundraising. And so what we've seen are people who have landed jobs that are not just in a kind of entry level, although some people have, of course, because they wanted to take their time kind of getting to know an organization before growing, but also really kind of going into like a job that would for other candidates be something that would require 5, 10 years of experience. It all, of course, comes down to the kind of job that you're applying for, whether that's kind of a front end fundraising, donor facing role, or whether that is something that's more operationally focused, or more technology focused, or perhaps more compliance focused, or event management focused. We're finding that our students that are coming from the program are really ready and that employers are really happy with the level of skills that they've garnered through this program and elsewhere to be able to apply for jobs that are maybe just a bit more advanced than perhaps someone who doesn't have this certificate.
That's amazing. Thank you. Um, yeah, go ahead,
Can I
Michelle.
add
I was just gonna
something?
say.
Because yes, I know that having a job is very important, but what I found was it also I had aspirations to be a volunteer. So when I finished the program, I joined a lovely nonprofit called the Hyde Park Nature Center, and I joined it as a on the governance board as a director of fundraising. So it kind of gave me that push and that confidence to be able to go and do what I wanted to do in my spare time.
That's a great point, Michelle.
I'm sure you're on
Sorry,
mute.
Mash, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was gonna say that's a great point as well, Michelle. Thank you for for sharing that. And next question is, are there any opportunities for in-person collaboration in the program?
Y Sometimes it really depends on the instructors and the student interest. So oftentimes the instructors will ask students at the beginning if there is interest from students to connect in person, and we aim to serve. And unfortunately, because our students are from all over the place, unless you're willing to drive or fly or take a train into wherever the gathering is happening. Sometimes we have hybrid opportunities as well where students can connect virtually, but also in person. But that's more informally, or it's more optional. It would be considered optional, as not part of the program certificate. Prerequisites. But that said, yeah, our students have often asked, can we get together? And when we were doing this program in person, Michelle will remember that we would often get together and have some social after class sometimes just to be able to more informally share our experiences and just connect and network. And so we try to maintain that sense of community, even though it's all online.
Unless it's a day like this, right? Then you prefer staying in.
Yeah, it's a snowy day here in Toronto.
Okay, moving on to the next one. I know you mentioned about data analytics in one of the courses. I think we have a question regarding that, if it does include any statistics, and if you need any background for that.
So we have deliberately designed the data analytics program for people like me who have very little statistics or financial kind of economics background. It is an opportunity really to, yes, of course, get the basics of how data is collected, analyzed, synthesized, and the ways in which strategies are developed based on the data that we have for fundraising, whether that's collecting information about the community, about donors, about uh, trends that are happening, demographic changes, and applying that to your fundraising knowledge. So if you are someone who loves data, this course is for you. And if you're someone who's just even curious about how to implement data, this course really will meet your needs.
Curiosity is always the first step, right? So I love that.
Yeah, sometimes the word data can be a bit frightening for some people. But I have to say this course was really designed as a way to just be much more to kind of just break down that sense of trepidation around kind of hard data and its application into the field of generosity making.
Yeah, and I can definitely say from our conversations with the students, at first you might think, oh, data, statistics, but later on it all becomes more comfortable as you start going through the course. So yeah, can't agree more.
I would
Um,
also say that it's just on the point around data. Um, more and more charities are thinking about the ways in which they're collecting their data ethically. And so what we teach is how do we best collect data that speaks to the needs of a charity? And how do we also collect data in such a way that it's useful and that it's not something that we're just overwhelming our community on, doing surveys and polls and the rest of that. So, and using that information to be able to make decisions is really critical these days. Employers are looking for that kind of analytical sensibility.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love that. Okay, next question is for Michelle. Michelle, since you took the course, was there anything you learned that you still use regularly in your current role?
That's a great question. And, because the course does help you build your fundamental knowledge, I would say absolutely yes. There was things that I used right away when I started in the field and made that career change. Like definitely, I worked on us transitioning to a new database. So knowing, being able to write business rules because you know what the processes are and like what the steps are and that it takes to raise money was definitely helpful. I loved Christian's class because I love writing. So I definitely do a lot of my own writing to this day, whether it's, cases for support or proposals. I really enjoy that. And then, of course, major gift fundraising. Like, really, I do feel like I use everything because you kind of build on it as you go. So, and those were my personal favorites, I guess you could say too. So, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
One thing that
absolutely.
I didn't mention, and I should, building off what Michelle said, is that because this course was just recently designed, we've also included some helpful tips, tools, and questions around the implementation and use of AI in fundraising, whether that's through developing cases for support, thinking about data collection, using AI in a responsible manner, but also really thinking about the future of technology and its influence on fundraising practice. And so, some of those skills, which will come to bear in your careers, I'm sure, likely, or in your volunteer work as Michelle pointed out, it is really critical for you to kind of get in at the ground level on that. And the certificate refers to that as well.
Love it. Okay, so for someone who is brand new to fundraising, what's the biggest aha moment students have during the program?
Michelle, you want to take that one?
Um, I will take it, and maybe my answer will be unexpected. Um, I would say one of the biggest aha moments for me is how powerful growing your network in the sector that you want to work in is at the time and continues to become. So, like I mentioned, being able to have access to senior leaders in the field was incredible, and being able to build a network of peers was equally as incredible. And I think that people who want to work in this field very quickly start to realize how important your network is, and the people who you work with just as equally as important as the people you serve. So for me, that was my aha moment. I don't know, Christian, what do you think? What are people saying in the courses?
You know what? I think students are really surprised at the ways in which they are taking what, is a fully online program and really breathing life into its application. And so even if you are kind of haven't landed the job that you want in fundraising or that amazing primo volunteer opportunity in fundraising, people are surprised by how quickly they're garnering the tools to be able to get to that place where they're adding that to the portfolio. I think that's been a bit aha moment for students where they're like, this was really great because I didn't know how to draft a fundraising letter or the kind of technical components of what we need to report. the data we or information we need to collect and report back to the government. But now I know, and now I know how exactly where to find that and how to deliver that. And so you are really hitting the ground running from the first course to the last course. And you're constantly developing your skill set, but also your palette of material that you can apply to any job opportunity, but also as you think about where you want to go next in your career.
Sounds like you really evolved, right, from that first course to the last one, and there is a lot of growth within just taking the certificate from beginning to end. So thank you again for sharing that. So next question is, from your perspective, what separates a good fundraiser from a really great one in today's nonprofit landscape?
Oh boy. That's a great question. It's a great question
Got some really
because
good questions today.
yeah, there are a lot of great fundraisers out there who are doing incredible work and raising a lot of money for charities. What I like to see as a hiring manager is someone who also comes with deep curiosity and passion. What takes a fundraiser from good to great is a deep personal commitment to the mission of a charity and being able to apply those amazing skills that you've learned, not just in this program, but from other professional experiences to that. It's the intersection between passion and professional experience and commitment to an organization that takes a fundraiser from good to great. Michelle, what do you think? I'm very curious how you would answer this question.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm in a role where I have to raise money. So that's a key indicator if you're successful in your job. But as Christian said, it's way more than that. It's your passion, like because we really are making change in our communities with the help of our organizations and our donors and things. But what would here's what I want to say to that is I think it takes lots of different types of people, different voices, different personalities. I don't think that you can generalize an answer to that question. I think what makes people good at what they do can be different for every person who's in it. Christian, think about all the different personalities you meet, right? And they can all be equally as successful in terms of raising money, being great champions for the organization, and we all do it a little bit differently. So
I also think
I
there's
would caution people away from thinking that there's just one way to kind of pursue success.
I was just going to add that I also think, and it's not just in this field, I think in every field, the energy that you bring to anything and the motivation that you have, that always makes a difference. And so, with that energy and motivation and passion, like you said, if you bring that, I think you can always do good and great things not just this, in all other fields. Okay, so we have a question. The next one is, if you want to start a nonprofit organization, is this sufficient knowledge to do that? And where can we get more details regarding bursaries and financial help? So for the second part of the question, I'm going to be sharing my direct email after their presentation, so you can reach out to me regarding any questions for bursaries and financial help, and we can help you with that. We also do have a nonprofit and voluntary sector management certificate, which is separate from this one that you might be interested in. But I'll let Krishan or Michelle answer, if it's sufficient knowledge to start a nonprofit organization from this certificate.
We have had a number of students who were really interested and committed to a particular cause and want to start a nonprofit. And what we found is that this certificate lends itself well to really creating the foundations for setting that up. But to Mashroor's point, This other certificate around nonprofit and voluntary sector management or leadership is really a way to be able to marry what you learn in fundraising management, resource development, financial investment in a particular organization, nonprofit charity. Nonprofits and charities aren't exactly the same thing. And so charities are one part of kind of like the nonprofit world, but nonprofits also include voluntary organizations. They include, for example, organizations that are led differently than for-profit or small businesses. So there are different governance models that you learn in the nonprofit. Um, certificate. This one, of course, delves deeper into charitable giving within a nonprofit. So you'll learn a lot from this course as a companion to the one in the other certificate that Mashur referenced.
Thank you, Krishan. Next question is for you. From your experience leading advancement teams, what skills do you wish more early career fundraisers came in with?
One of the things that I think I'm learning from, especially from younger and more kind of newcomers to our department, is their experiences are shaping the ways in which we think about best practice in fundraising. So, a lot of our newer staff, for example, and I would say some of the hiring leaders within the fundraising world are experiencing this as well, are really helping us kind of rethink what is tried and true in our work. And what I really appreciate are the opportunities for our newer staff to be able to share that, creating those spaces where younger or perhaps newer, I shouldn't say younger necessarily, people can come in and think and help us reshape the future of fundraising. What I really appreciated are those opportunities to be able to exchange and dialogue around where we want to take our communities and how fundraising and generosity is changing based on demographics, for example, or based on community interest, or the ways in which we are thinking about intergenerational shifts and priorities and values. So it's not a simple question because it's actually about me learning from you instead of me hiring for something specific from younger people or newer people into the field. I love those opportunities to be able to hear and listen. So I would say for newer people coming into the field, it's really important for you to be able to find the space and place of belonging so that your perspective is valued and that it is seen, and in fact, that it can help grow the field or the charity that you're in.
That's an amazing answer. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anything you want to add to that, Michelle?
I love that answer. I mean, I do think that having a knowledge base like you would get from this certificate is important. It kind of accelerates your learning curve and training. I think it gives candidates a lot more confidence to have some of that background, but it's not everything because you're going to continue to learn through your career. I do think what I like to see when I'm interviewing someone is people who kind of are express that interest and openness to continue learning about the industry, but also about the organization and the people that it serves. So yeah.
No, I love
If I
it.
could just say one more thing about the
Yeah.
certificate and perhaps even the community that has emerged from this certificate, the alumni and the employers, and even just the friendships that are made through this certificate. What's really special is that once you've graduated, people just stay in touch and follow each other's careers and follow each other's lives in ways not just on social through LinkedIn or through the group we have, but really in a very kind of deep way. It's funny when people from the certificate end up working at the same organization and they're able to compare notes and be able to reconnect after perhaps a few years after graduating from this. And so that sense of mentorship that one receives from this program that carries on beyond the program is pretty special. And the network is really invaluable. There's really no price tag that you can put on that. It's really, really something that's quite unique to this program. And I would say to many programs at the Chang School.
Those are some great last words. Thank you so much for sharing that, Krishan. And yeah, big thank you to you and Michelle for sharing your valuable insights today. We don't have any more open questions, so we will close out now. Thanks also to Abby, Randall, and Adam for ensuring everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. And of course, thank you all for taking the time to attend and join our session today during lunch hour on a Friday. For more information about the certificate presented today, please visit our website at continuing.torontomu.ca. And if you have any further questions, you can feel free to reach me directly at mash.chaudhry@torontomu.ca. All of the information that we shared, a recording of the session will be sent to you with a follow-up email and a survey within the next 24 to 48 hours. And on behalf of the Chang School and our panelists, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thanks,
See you in
everybody.
class.